Lourdes blasts it to left. It's gone. Make it a dozen. Gurriel.
Welcome to another Valley Sports Plug Arizona Diamondbacks recap for August 28th through September 10th, 2023. I'm Chris Patrick, and with me today are my co-hosts Michael Benjamin and VSP Tallman, here to break it all down for you. So let's go ahead and get into it. In the last 2 weeks, the D-backs went 6-7 over 4 series, and after this last weekend, their overall record stood at 75-69 on the season, still in the fight for a wild card spot and the playoffs. Let's take a look at how that all broke down for the D-backs. Starting off the last 2 weeks, the Diamondbacks visit the City of Angels to take on the Dodgers for a 3-game series. Not a hot start for this recap, as the Snakes lose all 3 and are swept out of town. They've now lost all of their last 5 meetings with LA. Coming home, the D-backs would host the Baltimore Orioles for a 3-game series. The D-backs won the first in this series, but went on to drop the last 2, losing this series 1-2. Staying at home, the Colorado Rockies came to Chase Field for a 3-game series. The D-backs took this series 2-1. And closing out the last 2 weeks, the Diamondbacks traveled to Chicago for a crucial 4-game series against the Cubs, who are also in the hunt for that wild card spot right now. The D-backs won the first 3 in this series and were cruising towards a sweep, but weren't able to close the door on this one, losing the final game 5-2. But now go ahead and pass it over to Michael Benjamin for a deeper look at how those last 2 weeks went down.
Coming off a stellar series win against the wild card challenger Cincinnati Reds, the Diamondbacks head to La La Land to square up against the division-leading Dodgers. It's safe to say it didn't go so hot. Zach Gallen gives up 3 homers and 6 earned runs in Game 1. Merrill Kelly possibly has his worst outing of the year in Game 2, allowing 7 runs on 12 hits. And the Diamondbacks are shut out in Game 3 as the Dodgers sweep the D-backs and continue their scorching run. The confines of home field weren't enough either, as the AL East leading Baltimore Orioles roll into Phoenix. The D-backs were able to scratch out Game 1 behind 2 homers from Gurriel Jr. and Christian Walker, but the Orioles' bats were too much to handle as Slade Cecconi gets jolted in Game 2, and Baltimore overcomes a D-backs rally with 4 runs in the 6th to secure the series. We all took a sigh of relief as the National League worst Colorado Rockies trudge into town, but the D-backs can't secure the Christopher Patrick titled must-needed series sweep, but do take the series. Merrill Kelly holds strong through 7 in Game 1. Arizona can't muster a hit against the horrid Rockies bullpen in the final 3 innings of Game 2, but they overcome a 5-1 deficit to spank the Rockies in Game 3 behind Alec Thomas's 5 RBIs. And our playoff lives seem to almost come down to our final matchup of the recap against the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. And boy, was it something special. Tommy Pham slams 2 first-pitch home runs in Game 1. Zach Gallen throws his 2nd career complete game, his first career 9-inning complete game in an absolute gem, allowing no runs on 3 hits, and are catapulted to the win by an overturned catch which resulted in an RBI single from Corbin Carroll. The Diamondbacks capitalize on a wild pitch in the 10th from Palencia and sneak by the Cubs 3-2 in Game 3. But all good things must come to an end, as Cubs starting pitcher Kyle Hendricks stays calm through 5 2/3, bolstered by a 3-run 3rd inning. Guys, I don't have much to say except we're right where we want to be. Playing meaningful September baseball. And the NL wildcard race seems to be changing by the day. We know this. But with a huge series victory over the Cubs and some matchups against other teams fighting for the playoffs, it's safe to say this young Diamondbacks team seems to be in control of their own destiny. Gotta love it. So I have to pass it over to Tallman because I know he has something to say. So let us know what's going on and what you've been seeing over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, guys. So 6-7 over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I was hoping we'd come out with a couple more wins than that. But and then the other goal was, those matchups against the Dodgers and the Orioles. You're hoping, hey, is there some way we can just go 3-3 through those 2 series? But I mean, the Dodgers are in a league of their own right now. They're just absolutely on fire. They had a historic August. Right now, we just can't compete with the Dodgers, and that's just the reality that we have to have. And then to think about, hey, if we can jump into the playoffs, Are we going to cross paths with them? Of course we are. So that's going to just be an absolute nightmare. But that is what I want. We gotta be that small town team playing against the big dogs, and when it matters the most. Looking at that, we won the games we needed to win. Coming in and smashing the Cubs in the mouth, that was incredible to see. Just the fight in the team, it's still there. We still got the fight. You'd think we'd just be ultimately deflated after getting laughed out of Los Angeles and getting beat up by the Orioles, but we're still in it, right? But we're at the time where this long season that they call a marathon, it's now a foot race, okay? We need to sprint as fast as we can. Every game matters, and we need to pull off these W's. And the pitching, man, the pitching has just been so inconsistent. I mean, you guys mentioned Gallen, horrible in LA, gets beat up against Baltimore, but then he comes back and he's incredible against the Cubs, pitching that complete game. And then you look at Kelly getting beat up by the Dodgers as well. And then going into that Dodgers series, you're like, okay, perfect. We're lined up great with our rotation. We're going to send out our two aces, right? What we thought. And man, they just got absolutely battered. But then Kelly comes back and he pitches a serviceable game against the Cubs, gives us a chance to win the ball game. Then you sprinkle in Davies. I mean, Davies had a pretty decent start against the one lone win against the Orioles, gave us a chance to win that baseball game. But then he comes back, gets smashed by the Rockies, doesn't even make it 4 innings. And then look at Brandon Pfaadt and Ciccone. I mean, they have just become kind of liabilities. So we really need to tighten that up. Our aces need to be absolutely electric through these last couple weeks of the season to keep us within that wild card reach. But I don't know. I'm feeling really good after that Cubs series and feeling really good that we have another big key matchup against them coming up next week.
Absolutely. We finished off the last 2 weeks very strong, and it's all been about momentum with this team. It just seems like if you follow just the recaps, it's been a roller coaster to say the least. It's been, like I said, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, which means we're still progressing forward, still progressing towards where we want to be, but maybe not quite ready to take the giant leap. Like you mentioned, we're not able to compete with the good teams. The Los Angeles Dodgers are just a force to be reckoned with right now, and they really cemented that claim this last 2 weeks with our matchup we had against them. I know we were able to jump on them early in the season and won a couple of those series, but now the Dodgers are in full force and charging towards the playoffs with a commanding lead in the division. Obviously, there's no way we're catching them, but we got to keep fighting for this wild card. Everybody's got to start being more consistent. It seems like when the pitching is on, the batting isn't, and vice versa. So we need everyone to play their best baseball at the same time so that we can win these games. I mean, just looking at Zach Gallen, he had 3 starts in the last 2 weeks, went 1 of 2, had an ERA of 5.03 over those games with 16 strikeouts. And you did mention that 1 complete game shutout. Hopefully that is the momentum he needs to start building on that and continuing those great starts. Christian Walker, man, again, I was singing his praises just 2 weeks ago, but has again taken another step back and the bat's gone a little bit cold. His average 222, not the worst, but with just 10 hits, 2 home runs, and 4 RBIs, we know he can do better than that. Ketel Marte, he's been doing what he needs to do. His average 293, 12 hits, 1 home run, and 5 RBIs in the last 2 weeks. And then we can't forget to mention the number 1 prospect in our organization, Jordan Lawler, getting called up to the big leagues. He played 3 games so far with 1 hit, 1 run, and an average of 0.91. I saw some good things from him defensively, saw some bad things from him defensively. I just think he's showing that he's a young guy. He'll have his official rookie year next season, I would imagine, as we also let Nick Ahmed go. I want to thank him for everything he's done for the organization after nearly a decade here and a couple Gold Gloves mixed in. Got a lot of love for him, but it's time that we start progressing towards being the best baseball team we can possibly be. And I think that starts with this season and with bringing guys like Jordan Lawler up to the bigs. But guys, plenty to talk about with the last 2 weeks. But now I need to know, who is your player of the recap, Michael Benjamin?
Fellas, this was a really easy one for me. Unfortunately, I did get bounced from the fantasy baseball playoffs last week, but I was keeping an eye all week on what this man was doing and what he has been doing over the past month. The slump is a long way away now. I had to go with Corbin Carroll once again, the man who just seems to always make an appearance in our player of the recaps. But Just looking at his past 2 weeks, hitting .313 with 15 hits, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 6 alone against the Chicago Cubs. He did give us a scare in that final game against the Rockies when he was hit in consecutive at-bats and eventually pulled due to a wrist contusion. But he's a young gun. He came back the next day and just continued to soar. We're getting close to the end of the season. I'm really excited to dive into an overall view from this team. But at this point, I don't think there's any way you can say that this man is not the NL Rookie of the Year. So I went with Corbin Carroll again this week. And Tallman, who's your player of the recap this time?
Yeah, great pick, Miss Benjamin. I'm going to go with Lourdes Gurriel Jr., a guy that always seems to be a consistent bat in this batting lineup. I mean, he's batting .298, 14 hits, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 8 runs scored in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, that's something that we need a lot. That we need that consistent bat in that middle of the lineup, and he's been giving that to us the last 2 weeks, and hopefully he continues to do so. But what's really jumping out to me is his defensive performance. I mean, if you go back, if you look at that game against the Cubs on Saturday, where we won the game in extras, 3-2. I mean, this guy, he basically won that game for us. Bottom of the ninth, Cubs player hits a ball off the outfield wall. Instead of going for that glorious catch, he plays it, bounce off the wall, turns around, throws him out at second base. And it's so key because the next batter up hits an easy double. So if he missed that ball, didn't throw that guy out second, game was over. And then you turn around, you go into the bottom of the 10th. He makes an incredible running catch to get the second out of that 10th inning. So that really jumped out to me as well. He's just been playing lights out the last couple of days in the outfield. So Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is going to be my player of the recap.
All solid choices, gentlemen, but I have to go with our closer, Paul Sewald. He has done exactly what we brought him in here to do, which is get the saves when called upon. He has 4 saves in 4 appearances in the last 2 weeks, and that gives him 31 on the season. Now, I know most of those came during his time with the Seattle Mariners, but that doesn't take away from the fact is he's getting the job done. I know he had a rough start when he first joined this team, but since then has picked right back up where we knew he could and is getting those wins for us when we need him to shore it up. So Paul Sewald, man, he's going to be a crucial piece in that bullpen once we make it to the postseason, if we make it to the postseason, and he'll be a big part of us making it there if we can. So definitely going to keep an eye on all of these guys and the Diamondbacks as they roll through the last, I think, 3-4 weeks of this season. And we'll be sure to keep you updated with these recaps. Coming up in the next 2 weeks, the Diamondbacks are going to travel to New York and take on the Mets in Queens for a 4-game series. We'll come back home for another 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. Staying at home, we'll host the San Francisco Giants for a quick 2-game series. And then we'll finish out the next 2 weeks back in New York against the Yankees for a 3-game stint. We'll obviously, like I said, keep you updated, so make sure you're tuning in right here on Valley Sports Plug. For Michael Benjamin and VSP Tallman, I'm Chris Patrick, and we'll see you next time. Peace.